So today we're going to be talking about improper fractions and mixed numbers. You're going to want your calculator out. Having that will save you some time with a lot of these problems. So example 1, when we're reducing fractions, you can do it by hand if you want, where you just look at the numerator and the denominator, try to find a common factor that the two have, some number that can go into both, then divide both the numerator and the denominator by that number. Keep doing that until they don't have any factors in common, or your calculator can do it for you. So to do it in the calculator, you would just type in the fraction as a division problem. So we're going to use our calculator. So you would type in 72 divided by 90, and you hit enter. It should give you a decimal. And then if you hit the math button, which is on the left-hand side, I think 2 buttons underneath second, and then if you hit enter, enter. So hit enter twice. And then it should pop up a reduced fraction on your screen. So you have your calculators for the entirety of this course. You get them for all of the tests. There's no non-calculator portion, so if you're able to use the calculator, it can save you some time to do the simplifying and the reducing this way. So you should have ended up with 4/5. Did everybody get that? Okay. Then can you guys just practice using the calculator? Can you finish up example 1 there, B, C, and D? Okay, so for B, you should have ended up with 3/25. C was 1/16. And D was 2/7. Do you have any questions about those? So if you're asked to just reduce a fraction, then it is totally fine just to use your calculator. You just got to make sure you're typing everything in correctly. And so since you're using your calculator, there's not really much work you have to show, which is fine. But also if you want to do it by hand, that's fine too. It's personal preference, whatever you want to do. All right. Now we're going to talk about mixed numbers and improper fractions and how to convert between the two. So a mixed number is the sum. Remember, sum is means addition, the answer to an addition problem. Of an integer, which is a positive or negative whole number, and a fraction. And so they're usually written where the integer is like normal font size, so you have like 5, and then the fraction is put right next to it, so like 2/3. When we were doing order of operations stuff yesterday, we had the situation where if we had 2 letters right next to each other, or if we had like a number right next to a parenthesis with no operation written, it was implied multiplication. That's not the case for mixed numbers. So even though there's not a plus sign in here, when it's written like this with an integer right next to a fraction, this is implied addition. This is essentially saying you have 5 plus 2/3. So you got to be careful of that. Also, notation-wise, or how you write it, make sure you do the fraction like this, the vertical fraction. If you write it with like the horizontal or the diagonal fraction bar, it can make this look like 52/3. So just make sure that it's very clear what number is the integer and where the fraction is. So writing it like the vertical way will make that clearer. Okay, so a mixed number is where you have an integer and a fraction. An improper fraction is just a fraction on top so a fraction whose numerator is larger than the denominator. So an improper fraction, you just have one fraction. There's no integer attached to it. But your numerator is larger than your denominator. So like 22 over 7. 22 is bigger than 7, and 22 is in the numerator. So that makes it an improper fraction. Okay. So now we have to practice converting between the two because there are situations where we prefer mixed numbers and there are situations where we prefer improper fractions. So you have to be able to convert between those. So first we're going to start with when you start with a mixed number and we want to convert it to an improper fraction. So we can use our calculator for this. And like we said up in the definition of mixed number, a mixed number is just a sum. So we're going to type in that sum into your calculator. So if we had that example, 5 2/3 in the calculator, you would type 5 plus 2 divided by 3. So you get all practice typing that in your calculator. Then you'd hit enter. Yeah. Okay, give me a second. So you would do 5 plus 2 divided by 3, hit enter, and then use that math enter again to have it, your calculator will give you a fraction. So 5 plus 2 divided by 3, enter, and then the math button, and enter 2 more times. And you should get 17 over 3. Guys have any questions about that? Okay. One note here, if we have a negative mixed number, you have to put the sum in parentheses with the negative on the outside. So the sum is in parentheses and negative is outside. So for example, if we had negative 5 2/3, we wanted to convert that to an improper fraction. In the calculator, you would type your negative, then a parenthesis before you do your sum. Because that negative goes to the whole mixed number, not just the 5. So you got to make sure the negative is outside of the parentheses. Okay. You guys have any questions? Okay, can you try example 2 then? So A, B, C, and D. Notice there are 2 positive ones and 2 negative ones, so make sure you know when you have to do the parentheses with the negative outside. So go ahead and try example 2. I'll be walking around, so flag me down if you have questions. Okay, so for example 2, letter A, you should have ended up, so you should have typed in 3 plus 4 divided by 5, and you should have ended up with, math enter, 19 over 5. For B, this was a negative, so you had to have the negative outside and then your sum inside the parentheses, so 2 plus 5 divided by 8. And then math enter, you get negative 21 over 8. Letter C, it's positive, so you can just do 4 plus 2 divided by 3. And you get math enter, so you get 14 over 3. And then letter D, again, it's a negative, so you have to put it in parentheses. 7 plus 7 divided by 10 should give you negative 77 over 10. You guys have any questions about that? Okay. So then on the back, now we're going to go the other way. So we're going to be starting with an improper fraction, and we're going to be going to a mixed number. So we're going to use our calculator again. Use our calculator. And you're going to do your numerator divided by your denominator. So your top number divided by your bottom number, just like we were doing when we were reducing the fractions. And so we're going to use this example from example 3, their letter A, just as an example as we're going through the directions here. So in your calculator, you would type 42 divided by 5 and hit enter. And then you should end up with a decimal, right? But what is the number in front of the decimal point? 8. So that 8, the number in front of the decimal is your integer, or it's the number next to the fraction. Okay, so that's how you get your integer. Now we just need to figure out how to get the fraction part of the mixed number. So to do that, you take your integer that you just got and multiply it by your denominator. So in this case, you would take 8 times 5 and hit enter. And what do we get from that? What's 8 times 5? 40. And so however far away that answer is from your numerator, that's going to be your numerator of your fraction and your mixed number. So 8 times 5 gives you 40. 40 is 2 away from, if I spell from correctly, 42, which is the numerator. So in our mixed number, 2 is going to be your numerator, and the denominator stays the same. Okay, so you do your division of the improper fraction to get your integer, whatever number is in front of the decimal. You take that integer times the denominator, and whatever the difference is from that to the numerator becomes your new numerator. So it's kind of hard to explain in words, but it's not too many buttons you have to push. So example 3a, the answer we got was 8 2/5. And then you can always check to see if your mixed number is correct by just typing in that addition into your calculator like we did. So if we did 8 plus 2/5, would we get 42/5? So you can always use your calculator to double check your answers. And this little asterisk here below the steps, if the improper fraction is negative, then the mixed number must be negative too. So you don't have to deal with the negative in the calculator. You can just, if your improper fraction is negative, once you do the work to get the mixed number, you can just put the negative out in front. So just make sure the signs match when you're converting. A number won't go from positive to negative if you're just converting it. Okay, so let's do letter B together. So you start by doing the division. So in your calculator, you do 17 divided by 3. And what's the number in front of the decimal? You all should be looking at it in your calculator. 5, thank you. So it's 5 point something, but we don't really care what the something is. We just care about the 5. So 5 is our integer. And then we take that 5 times our denominator, which is 3. Gives us 15. And how far away from 15 is 17? 2. Yep. So you can do 17 minus 15. Gives you 2. So 2 becomes our numerator. And denominator stays the same. Do you guys have any questions? Very quiet. It's kind of freaking me out. Okay. Can you guys try C and D then? So notice both of those are negatives. So that means your final mixed number, your answer should be negative as well. Okay, so letter C. Can someone tell me what they got for their final mixed number there? Go ahead, Dominic.
Negative 4 1/2.
Negative 4 1/2. Did we all get that? Make sure you have the negative there. If you didn't have the negative out in front, that would be counted wrong. So make sure you have your negative. Can somebody else tell me what they got for letter D? I know somebody got it. Get you started, it's negative. Someone besides Dominic, come on. Negative. What's my integer? 2. And the fraction? 1/11. All right. You guys have any questions? Okay.